Welcome everyone to our presentation here on the Saxophone Studio Class Online page. Thank you so much, Dr. Nab, for having us today. My name's Ellie Parker. I'm a doctoral student at the University of Houston and Assistant Director of the Aura Contemporary Music Ensemble.
And I'm Rob Smith. I'm the Director of the Aura Contemporary Ensemble and the head of the composition area at the University of Houston. And we're going to talk to you about some innovative concert programming and presentation ideas coming from my 20 years of experience of conducting the contemporary ensemble. And some of the things that we'll discuss are probably common sense kinds of things. Maybe others will be more interesting and unusual that you haven't heard about. I think all of the things we're going to talk about are a pre-COVID world, which is unfortunate. You know, I don't know how soon we'll be able to go back to doing some of the things that we've done. However, I think the basic tenet of this is be creative in your presentation. And I would say to ask the following question when you're putting together a program, which is, how do you best take advantage of the venue or the medium that you're performing in? And that's what we've attempted to do. We work in an opera house that has full theatrical lighting and projectors and things like that. But you know, if you're presenting a concert online, what does that mean? And what is the best thing for that venue? It may not be, and it probably isn't exactly the same thing that works well in a hall. So if you can kind of think about the things that we've done and maybe try to put that into whatever your situation happens to be. First thing I want to mention about concert programming is the concert should be a show, I think. If you go to a rock concert, they have thought it out specifically all the way through what the lighting is going to be, what the order of works is going to be. Everything is designed to make this very fluid presentation. And that goes for a lot of things. For some reason in concert music, we tend to think, oh, well, here's the music we're going to play, but then no one gives any thought or a lot of thought into exactly how that's being presented. And you know, I know we've all been to concerts where you're sitting there waiting for the one guy to do the set changes for 15 minutes, you know, and we want to get rid of that. We want to make sure that we're entertaining the audience in some sort of show. Flow and dramatic shape is really important. Just like as in a piece of music, how is the flow of your concert going? And you can do this many different ways, but I think it's really important to think about it. Somehow have a variety of styles or moves, or if you are working with just one composer, say, what is the variety of that composer's work? A variety of lengths. You know, if we put a whole bunch of long pieces together, is that really the best idea? It may or may not be. But really think about what that flow is to the concert. What's the journey you're taking them on? Length, I think, is super important. Keep your length relatively short. It's great to have people leave your concert and say, you know, I wish there was one more piece, versus the opposite, I wish there was one less piece. I think an ideal length is 45 to 75 minutes, 90 minutes maximum, and that is including an intermission if you have one. I think that's a really good length. Shorter is probably better. Somewhere around that 60-minute to 75-minute length is probably ideal. If you're over 45 to 50 minutes, that's when you start thinking about the possibility of adding an intermission. Otherwise, maybe you just don't have one. I like to have some sort of theme or concept for the program, and a lot of that has to do with promotion. Instead of having people say, well, I'm going to go to the Aura Contemporary concert, it's like, no, I'm going to Aura's Avatar program. You know, maybe that was one of the titles we've used in the past. This doesn't have to be super involved. I like to start with a piece of music that I really want to present, and then start building on that program with what instruments I'm working with and what might pair well with that. And once I have a couple pieces, start thinking about what are the similarities. Is there something that they're both dealing with that I could make a theme out of? And it can be something quite broad. But all of that kind of can tie things together and help you kind of flesh out a program. Limit your set changes in order to keep your flow going. Ideally, you would have none. And we've been experimenting in my ensemble with trying to find ways to make it so there is never a down moment in a program. And I want to talk to you about some of the ways that we've done that, because I think this is an important part of making a concert a show. One is to strategically plan and limit your speaking. I have a pet peeve about concerts. I can't stand it when people get up there and start talking at the beginning. That's not to say that you shouldn't do that, but I suggest not doing it. But I think, we've all come to the concert to hear music. Let's hear music. And if you do feel like there's a moment where you want to talk, plan out what you're going to say. What exactly are you going to say? And is it necessary? Is it something that could go into the program maybe? Really think about that. Strategically plan it. If you are going to do it, maybe that's where there's a big set change. So the set change is happening while you're talking. This is all geared towards keeping this concert going. Plan your stage setup. That might sound really common sense, but you might say, oh, these are the things, but then your stage crew doesn't know exactly where it goes. They need to know exactly where it goes, so things move as quickly as possible. Along that line, we're in a theater that does operas and things, and so we have at our disposal some things like spike tape, which is tape you can put on the floor that comes up really easy. No matter where you are, I think that's a great idea. So everybody knows if something has to be moved, exactly where it goes, because there's this tape on the floor. Consider using multiple setups, and we're going to show you some examples, but if you've got some really involved things, particularly with percussion, and you can do it, why not make more than one setup on the stage at the same time? This does mean that maybe not every work is going to be smack dab in the middle of the stage, but I don't think that that's particularly a problem. I've never had someone say, oh, you were a little off center for that one piece. It was distracting. I don't think that happens. And again, it's another way you can go boom, boom, boom from one work to the next. Even if it's a simple duo concert, maybe the solo music for a solo player is on one side, the duo music is in the middle, and then there's a setup for the other soloist if you have just two players. Strategically place intermission, I talked about that. If you have any kind of big changes, that would really help. Create a cue sheet. If you have a really involved concert, it helps to have a sheet for the stagehand or stagehands that shows them exactly what's going to happen, where things have to go, exactly what they have to move. Here is one of our cue sheets for our concert. I'm going to put my mouse up here. Hopefully you can see that. This is also showing where the spotlights are going to be. We have the option of using 10 spotlights on our stage. This over here is stage right. This is stage left. If you're familiar with stage directions, but this is facing the stage. So the things you see over here are on the right side of the stage as you face it. This is center, this is the left. Each little box here is one of the works on this concert. This is the work, and then it's going to be on the right side of the stage, flute, clarinet, soprano, and percussion. The next work is going to be in the middle of the stage, so there's absolutely no set change that has to happen at all so far. Going from the second piece to the third piece, all we have to do is move these two stands and chairs and move a piano. You see I put that over here into place right there. So it's a very quick set change. For this particular concert, we're experimenting with not stopping at all. So we put all of the program notes up on a projection. So while the move is happening, the audience is reading the program notes, and by the time they're done reading, we're already in place. The fourth piece is right here. Everything is on the left side of the stage, so again, no set change required at all. The last piece is on the second page. A bunch of things have to happen. This is a piece with a movie and headphones for all the players, and all these instruments need to be moved in front of the piano from over here. We have to strike the other piano, but we're covering it with a guest composer who will come up and speak. And we didn't have to wait at all. As soon as he was done speaking, we were completely ready to go and finish our program. So that's just kind of a little example. And then, like I said, these circles that are around things are the spotlights that we're going to use. We have 10 at our disposal. Last thing is a visual presentation, and I think that's really important. That includes lighting and projection. And I'm going to turn it over to Ellie, who's going to kind of walk you through some of the things we do with visual presentations.
Okay, awesome. See if I can just move the screen. Okay, so there are lots of different things you can use to you know, in this area. The first thing I want to talk about is lighting. As we said, our main venue is an opera house at the University of Houston, so we have a lot of lighting rigs available to us. But in most venues, you're going to find some of these equipments that you may be able to use. We use a mixture of spots, gobos, and colors to create our different effects. For us, the spotlight, let's find some examples. The spotlights come from the top of the stage, they come down onto the players. This has the effect of really drawing focus in on those players. It shows the audience exactly where they're supposed to be looking. It can also set the mood of the piece. A gobo is essentially like a light that's up on the balcony. It's kind of on the audience side of the stage that kind of has a stencil or some kind of a filter through it, which can create patterns on the stage. In this example, we have the spotlights again down onto the performers from the roof, and the gobo that kind of gives that texture at the back. We have also created our own custom gobos, kind of aura signature gobos in different designs. They're pretty inexpensive to make, and most theatre lighting companies will be able to help you manufacture them if you have a particular texture or particular style that you're trying to achieve. And also we have colored lighting available to us. So here you can see in this lighting effect, we kind of have all of those three things together. We have the spotlights from the roof coming down on the musicians. We have this red blush across the entire stage that really creates a really exciting mood. And then that kind of starburst effects is that stencil from the gobo, right? Obviously, this isn't going to be available in every single venue that you're going to be in, but I think that you can already always be thinking about how you can perhaps manipulate lighting in any way. If you have an on and off switch in the theatre or the space that you're using, you have the ability to change the lighting at different times. Maybe you can you know, only kind of light up certain areas. Maybe you can change how much the audience is lit up or not lit up at all, change different areas of the stage, whatever you can do to create some effects. When you're choosing a lighting cue and a lighting palette for your show, there's a couple of options again. You can maybe have just one lighting effect for the entire concert, which is pretty easy to do. You just set that at the beginning and then just let the whole thing go. You could also choose a different lighting effect for each piece. Maybe you want to show different effects for different pieces in different ways. And you can also set lighting cues as the music is being played at specific points in the score. When you're choosing where to put those, if you do want to have different lighting effects as the piece is moving through, it's important to look for different moods, different counterpoints, different big texture changes in the music that maybe you want to highlight. You can use lighting cues to reinforce the music, reinforce the tension or the release or the energy that you're trying to create in the musical performance. Or you could also use it to contrast it. You could also use lighting to be completely different. Generally, the more lighting cues you have in the work, the busier it starts to look. And sometimes creating kind of this really busy light show is kind of overwhelming. So maybe just choose a few key areas where you want to choose lighting within your piece. The way that, for Aura, the way that we communicate our lighting design to our lighting designer is that we mark every single lighting cue in a copy of the score. We make sure that there's someone in the light booth that is able to read notation, comfortable with following contemporary music scores, and they basically call the show to the lighting director as they come through. We're going to show you an example now of one of Rob Smith's pieces. It's called Spin for a string quartet. You're going to see a lot of light changes in this piece. This is because it's right at the very end of the work. We're just going to show you like the last 1 minute segment. You're going to see gradual changes from red to blue to red to blue to kind of show the different intensity and the drama towards the end of the piece. And as I said, this is a lot of cues for 1 minute's worth of performance, but we wanted to use this example because I think it's a really nice way to see how you can change the mood of the music. So here we're on a blue wash with spotlights coming down onto the performers. We're on a gradual change to red.
Quick change to blue. Sudden change to red to mask show where the sudden change.
And as I said, that's a lot of changes for 1 minute of music. We wouldn't recommend having every minute of music changing the lighting and the colors quite that quickly, but it does give you an indication of what could be achieved. So another thing you can do to enhance the visual presentation of your concert is projections. Projections are very, very popular. We see them a lot, and we want to just give you some examples of the way that we have used images and projections in some of our concerts. Eye to Ear was a concert that we produced a year ago that was music that was all inspired by visual art and imagery. So obviously we were going to use a lot of images, a lot of projections in this piece, in this concert overall. Viet Cong's Electric Aroma was one work that we performed. It's actually inspired by the works of Pablo Picasso. So as we were performing this work, we wanted to use different images of Picasso's work to accompany the music. Electric Aroma is through composed, so we actually chose landmarks in the music, landmarks in the structure that we wanted to change the images. And we also wanted to reflect how the music was progressing with those images. It wasn't a case of just kind of Google imaging Picasso and just kind of throw them on. We wanted to move from very, very colorful images to more black and white and more monothematic colors. We wanted to move from pictures of Picasso's that were fairly simple to ones that were much more complex to try to reflect the progression of the music and the way that that the composer was building tension in a similar way. Another piece we had, Night Writing. This was actually a student composition from one of the winners of our composition competition. And for this, underneath, it was a song, so underneath the text, underneath the lyrics, we included images by Teresa Fernandez, who is a painter that the composer actually knew and met in Rome. Another piece, Wings of Fire. This was all accompanied by pictures of butterflies, including one that the composer had drawn and created himself. And finally, Portraits by El Greco. This is a fantastic multi-movement work that is inspired by paintings by El Greco, who was a late 16th century artist who was creating really wonderful, very modern images for his time. And each of those movements were accompanied by different images, different representations of that painter's work. Another thing that is pretty straightforward to do in a way is unusual stage arrangements and unusual hall arrangements. We spoke a little bit about how you can use your stage to best facilitate set changes, but actually moving the audience around the room can be a really effective way to create interest and emotion. Even being off stage, playing in the audience, playing on the balcony, these can all be really useful effects to create different kind of feelings and thoughts within your program.
That work that she just showed is work by Bill Ryan called Blurred, and it's kind of an open instrumentation type of work, and it begins with just a piano and then other instruments join. And we had people scattered all over the stage, and then eventually as the music builds up, it added people who were in side balconies and eventually added the entire saxophone studio in the upper balcony, which was really quite a moment, especially for the audience not knowing that they were up there. And this music kind of surrounds you. And that's a picture from our dress rehearsal when the entire sax studio is in the balcony.
Okay, awesome. One thing that Aura, I think, has a little bit of a reputation for, especially in Houston, and especially within our audience, is the use of sets, costumes, and props. As I say, we live in an opera house, so it's amazing the kind of things that people that are just kind of in storage at the University of Houston that we can use. This is an example of a piece we did for the string quartet, which is all to do about with the Day of the Dead, where we actually created this kind of little altar on stage with different candles and different items to kind of enhance the mood. You can't see very clearly, but all of the members of the string quartet are all wearing masks. Just to kind of reflect back on our lighting, we've obviously got a red watercolor on stage, spotlights again, and that texture on the back is actually a projection that we added onto the back to create more texture. One piece that I'm very proud of is this work, Three's a Crowd by Chris Arell, which I gave the world premiere of last year. It's a piece for alto saxophone and video, which we're going to play a little bit of, but as you'll see pretty quickly, there are some extra musical things involved here. So there's some acting at the beginning. I actually perform in a full Popeye outfit from a boat on stage. I use my saxophone as an oar to kind of row the boat. And all of these things are extra musical things, but I think as a performer were really, really important to really selling this piece, really have people engaging in it and thinking it was, getting really into the storyline. When we, the saxophone has a microphone, is an amplified saxophone. We put some effects onto the sound. I also had a microphone for my speaking. And in our dress rehearsal, it was just important that, my movements were clear, that people were understanding the acting, that people were kind of being sold on it as much as just checking saxophone levels. So I want to play you just a little bit of Three's a Crowd, where we can see some of those things, use of set pieces, costume, lighting, videos, and performance acting.
Before we start that, I just want to Ellie's horn. I mean, I think that's whenever you are doing a piece that requires some acting, so you're asked to speak a few things and you're asked to row the imaginary boat. Well, we had a boat, but with your saxophone, I mean, that can be very awkward. The thing about Ellie is that she threw herself into it and practiced it. I mean, I remember we spent an entire day working on rowing. And, not that Ellie doesn't know how to row, but what does that look like on the stage? How can you communicate that on the stage? And even with a microphone, saying the text there's an art to it, and there's a way that you have to do it. And you have to be very convincing on a stage. As an actor on a stage, everything has to be slightly overdone in order to communicate well to the audience, including speaking slowly and clearly. So she did really a terrific job. And I think another thing that this piece shows is, while it's not necessarily a humorous piece, there is an element of humor to a saxophone player coming out in a Popeye costume and a boat on the stage. And I think that's another thing you can add when you're thinking about flow is that, do you have a little humor in your program? Not that you have to, but it's a nice thing to add. It's an extreme and adds to that sense of the program being a show. And this was definitely our lighter moment in the show. All right.
Okay, let's check it out.
I miss and I lost them. Whoa! Into the brick.
Okay, awesome. I love that. I love that video. It's fun. Okay, the next thing that we want to talk a little bit about is concert promotion. So once you have done all of this great work to think about your program and think about how things are going to work on stage, what can you do to help engage with your audience, and again have them find a way to create an identity for your program, for your organization, for your ensemble, whoever. So social media is obviously a big one. Everyone has their own kind of preferred ways to build their audience. Using images is really useful. Using images that already exist, maybe of headshots or composer shots or existing photographs, but also making your own images can be a really, really great way of giving your program some identity. We've been making videos for our concerts for almost 10 years, just in iMovie. It's pretty straightforward to do. It takes some time and it takes just a little bit of energy, but I think it's really, really worth the effort. We want to show you two examples of some of our concert promotion that we've used. The first one is, pause. Is from With Words. This was a concert that was all to do with the coming together of music and new literature. We collaborated with the University of Houston creative writing graduate students. As you can see, we made our own original photographs for our promotion. These are our aura performers in our School of Music library. The audio that you hear of the literature is read out by the authors themselves, so it's their own voices, and the authors do appear in our pictures as well. So I just want to play you this a little bit.
back in time is that you can't actually change
by the kitchen sink.
But I lost my face
A
years
spoon
ago.
of honey from a tree leaf. Feathers brushing metal.
Whatever shape or pattern it takes will not last.
And as I say, by doing that, you really give an indication to the audience of kind of what they're in for. You give them an idea of the music that they're going to hear, some of the connections that you want to make. I want to show you one more, which was our promo for a concert called Murder Mystery, where again we used it was kind of a theatrical work that we're going to talk about a little bit later. But again, the use of different actors, musicians, and original photographs. So I guess one of the questions is, how do you pay for all this stuff, right? We are fortunate because we are housed within an academic institution. A lot of this stuff is kind of a lot of the equipment is available to us. You just have to ask for it. You know, to create really, really great relationships with your colleagues, technical members of your faculty, people that run your concert halls, can be really, really useful people to know, and often incredibly helpful and incredibly knowledgeable. For some of our larger projects or more specific projects, we have applied for school, university grants, local and national grants as well. There's also the option to become a non-profit, which Aura is not. And we're not going to go into too much detail there, but another previous discussion on this Saxophone Online series was by Janbury Baker, who speaks in detail about how to turn your ensemble or your projects into a non-profit. So I would refer you to that if you want more interesting on how that kind of money stuff works. From my point of view, I spend a lot of time looking on eBay for things, costumes, you know, have good relationships with costume shops, things that are around your house. You know, if you're trying to find props, you don't always need to buy, you can borrow, and you can also make yourself. So I think just add a little bit of creativity into things, and be aware that it takes some time to make videos, take pictures, put these things together. Okay, and now we are gonna throw back over to Rob.
Well, I want to talk a little bit more about how we create some variety and flow in our concerts. And a big part of that is doing multidisciplinary collaboration. And visual art is definitely something we've done. The Eye to Ear program that we talked about before, we involved a lot of visual art with our program that kind of added something. And then a program we did earlier this season called Peculiar is a good example of how I put together a bunch of things and kind of made it multidisciplinary, and lots of different lightings and projections, and also worked on this idea of trying to make a continuous concert. So I just want to show you a little excerpts of all the pieces on that concert and kind of talk through what we did. What you're going to see on this video is a little, like I said, a little segment of each piece. And we wanted this program to be continuous. So we put up on the screen projections of the program notes and who the players are and what the works are, so that those were happening whenever there was a little set change. And this concert is actually that cue sheet that I showed you a little while ago. We added something else. The theme of the program is peculiar. Every work had something unusual about it in terms of why it was written, or something bizarre about it. And you see I had a little caption for this: an evening of music with bizarre inspirations. And so then I went and found a quote from, didn't matter from whom, but I looked up quotes that had the word peculiar in them. And then I matched up a quote or two quotes for each work. So before each work, there was a quote on the screen that used the word peculiar and was referencing in some way what you were going to see. Again, everything to kind of tie in the whole idea of this program and the theme of there's something peculiar here. Our very first work was supposed to be a work called Series and Posture, which is really interesting piece by David Byrd, involving a singer that's mimicking the sounds that the instruments are making, and it's actually referencing a psychological diagnosis where somebody could be put into a psychological institution and they end up mimicking the people around them, and then they find it hard to get out even if they're kind of sane. There's a little bit more to it. But unfortunately, our clarinet player got really sick, and there's so many special effects that we couldn't substitute. So the first piece you'll see on this program is actually a work of mine for solo flute called Tendril. What we did for this is just actually threw an image up behind the flautist in the background for that. The next work was called Retro, and we put an image up of some retro phones, features Ellie. There's a next work which is called Samurai Loops for 2 pianos and a video, and we had them dress up like samurai. And then going from that work to the next work, when I show you this, and I'll talk through it, is the actual transition. We didn't have to stop the concert at all because we had the multiple setups, but then we allowed the viewers to watch the program notes and then brought the musicians out. So everything is going to go in real time from the applause of Samurai Loops into the next piece, which is called Target. And some of the things that are projected on the screen behind the musicians, I've actually put in the video so you can read them. The piece that follows Samurai Loops is called Target, and it's about referencing some comments on our modern day military. And the last piece is called To Boston for Sex, and involves some speaking that the musicians were supposed to do. And when I heard the recording of this work, I noticed that, you know, when you have 5 or 6 people chanting something, it's really hard to understand them, no matter how accurately they're doing it. So I started to think, well, maybe because we had a singer on this program that we'd have the singer do it. And then it occurred to me that's not really what the composer asked for, but we could control this a lot better if there was a video of the people doing it, and we could control the volume and control how well they've spoken the words. And then I thought we might as well make a video for the whole piece, which is basically a road trip for someone going from one place to another to have sex, as you do. So let me just show you the little excerpts of this concert, which was through composed, if you will. So that's a picture of the image that's behind the flowers. We've got spotlights here, additional projection. That's our very own Ellie Parker. Pianists are dressed up like samurai. They have swords. This would be, you know, if you're thinking about flow, what I think of as the lighter work on the program. This minimalistic piano texture combined with excerpts of a 60s samurai film. Can't see it quite on the video, but the one pianist comes and murders the other at the end. Now this is in real time at this point. There's the applause. You can see that on the left side of the stage, as you're looking at it, there's a setup already. It's already there. As soon as the applause is over, we go to the program notes, and what you're seeing right now is what is on the screen. I've put it in the video up close so you can read it a little better. There's my quote, peculiar. And these are the program notes, and the percussionist is going to start doing a military snare riff to march the players out. And they're all dressed in military garb because of the nature of the piece. Now this isn't part of the music. We just decided to get them on stage to play as an interesting way of bringing them out. This is exactly what the stage looks like. And here's some excerpts of this particular piece, which we used projections for to show the text and to show the different movements. And before I play this one, the little excerpt of this, I did mention we decided to make our own movie. So we took some found footage of driving that I was able to find online, but then all of the text that we're supposed to speak, it's our ensemble members. And I put this little movie together using iMovie. Oops. Go back to that. I skipped out of it. Here's that piece again. Of course, Ellie's here again. The movie, I've put it up close so you can see it in a second and show what it looks like to the audience. Same thing you saw a second ago. Up on a big screen behind. Something I'll add about that piece is that the text, because it's this fast moving piece, goes by so quickly. And it was nice to have the video, because you'll notice I had them saying the words, or at least mouthing the words again, even though they weren't being said, to be able to reiterate what was being said so you could really get it, even if you missed it the first time through. Literature is a big thing that we've done. We've done 3 concerts with faculty and student collaborators who have written actual poetry and short stories that go with the pieces of music that I've selected on the program. In addition to that, we've done the opposite, and we did a program called Haunted, and this is sort of theater. I had one of the student DMA authors write a short play that we could do. So he wrote that play. I gave him the plan, which was have 3 or 4 actors. Most of it should be monologues, maybe 1 or 2 group scenes for all of the actors, and then I'll have the music that will match that. So there'll be a monologue or a scene, and then we'll follow that with music which will comment on the drama. And then we actually did a few things to kind of blend that together and have some moments where a piece might continue underneath the speaking or start before, and so forth. This program, we had 4 actors. Here's a poster for it. And here it is in action. We had projections to show the backdrop of this burned house where the action had taken place. And you can see the actors are off to one side, musicians in the center of the stage.
And that one's actually, just going back, that was an interesting one, because we have, if you can see me like right in the corner on the right hand side, where we're actually on stage waiting to play while another group is happening, because we have these multiple setups. As soon as the spot closes on one piece, we can immediately start on another one.
Yeah, thanks, Ellie, because that's an important thing. We're really trying to make this, again, a show. And this concert never stopped. It was a play that went for 55 minutes, and it started and stopped, and there was no breaks. And the multiple setup is how we managed to do it. So here's a great example of that. Here's one of the monologues, and you can see the actor on the right side of your screen, and then an image on the left side. But as soon as he was done talking, it goes to this next slide, boom, to us. We're right there. It would just switch the lights, and the music is right there. So as soon as he finished talking, went right to this shot, and we were able to play music that commented on what he just said. This is the end of the program, where there was a string trio playing, and it overlapped with the final dialogue of the actors. The program we mentioned earlier, Murder Mystery, was a program that I devised based on this work primarily by Bryce Dessner called Murder Ballads. And it occurred to me that I should do a concert called Murder Mystery. And so this concert definitely had the title first, really, along with Bryce Dessner's Murder Ballads. And I wanted to do this with an actor. So there was a local actor, professional actor, Susan Kuzin, we got together and we devised this program, and it ended up being in 3 parts. First part was called Murderers, where she did a bunch of monologues where she was the murderer. The second part was called Victims, and it focused around Bryce Dessner's piece, which is called Murder Ballads, and each movement of that refers to a folk song or a folk tale about murder, all dealing with victims, actually. And I was able to find either the lyrics for those songs or a text that would fit with those movements. And so she would read a story, we would play the movement all the way through with a little bit of overlap. The last part of our program, we wrote our own mini play called Detective and Suspects. Susan becomes a detective, I'm murdered, and the ensemble is the suspects. And we do a little tricky thing here. Susan has to go as the detective and search amongst the school and interview the faculty to see who might have done this murder. And we actually have her leave the stage, but then it's as if a camera follows her and we show a video of where she's gone, and then she comes back. This is just about a 5-minute segment. I'm gonna play you the end of this concert, essentially in real time, going from the very end of Bryce Dessner's piece all the way through to the very end of the concert to show you our little play and movie. So here it is, Murder Mystery, end of it.
Stabbed in the heart, her heart's blood aflow.
It's a little example.
Into the grave, pretty Polly did go. He threw something over her and returned to go home, leaving nothing behind him but the girl left to mourn. He went down to the jailhouse, and what did he say? I killed pretty Polly, and I tried to get away. Oh, gentlemen and ladies, I bid you farewell. For killing pretty Polly, my soul will go to hell.
Mendelssohn! AC/DC and Led Zeppelin, and also in the jazz tritonal substitution chords that you find in the jazz piece.
I'm looking for Blake Wilkins. Have you seen him?
No, which one's Blake Wilkins?
Dr. Wilkins, I presume. You're in a lot of trouble, mister. It's not Blake. Blake's been murdered. The murderer is still in the building. Who could it?
That's the end of our little crazy murder concert. The movie obviously was shown on the screen while she went backstage and then came back out. That's definitely an example of trying to add a little bit of humor to your concert. And, you know, in a concert about murderers, we needed to lighten it up after some of the things that were there. Last thing I'll show you is dance. We've collaborated a lot with dance, particularly with a group called the Safonia Dance Company. Sofia Torres is the choreographer. And the thing that she likes to do is really get the musicians involved with the dancers so that we equally share the stage, and we're actually intertwining the music with the dance. So the musicians are actually dancing very often, or at least in the space with the dancers, which means they've memorized music, so they can kind of do this. And I want to show you a few pictures from a concert we did called Memory Web. Memory Web was about, our catchphrase was entangled recollections of a life-changing event through music and dance. Essentially, it was about really horrific events like mass murders and things like that, not specifically referencing any one, but kind of talking about that in general. And we split it into 5 sections, one called Public Spaces, where this event happens. One is called Perpetrator, which kind of views the whole thing from the viewpoint of the perpetrator. Another one is Chaos, the actual time when the event happens. Another one is Victim, where we're viewing things from the victim's point of view. And the last one is Reconciliation, kind of going through this whole process of something like that. And here are some pictures from that. This is from Chaos. We actually wrote the music and the choreography at the same time. We used a piece by Frederick Rzewski called Les Moutons de Panurge, which involves some improvisation, and we really did our own thing with it. It's really not quite that piece. But Rzewski doesn't have any copyright on his music and allows people to use it freely, so we were able to do that. Here's some other pictures of the set and the dancers and the musicians and what that looked like.
And this is one where we're not in the Opera House, we're at a different venue, right?
That's right, we're in a space downtown, seats about 150 people, but it's specifically for dance and allowed some more flexibility. You can see that we built a set for this. That is a platform for the dancers that was moved around. This is from the very end of it. And then very last thing we're gonna finish with, and then we'll take any questions people have. Sorry if we ran a little long. Our most recent collaboration with Safonia was in October called Colony. And Sophia and I decided to present a concert about bees. And that might seem silly, but if you aren't aware, we're actually in a major crisis, no, not just COVID, but with honeybees. Honeybees fertilize most of the food that we eat, and they're dying all over the globe. And scientists aren't quite sure why. So in our program, we show kind of the inner life of a honeybee hive, but as the program progresses, we more and more talk about the dangers that honeybees have to go through until we get to the end, where we actually kind of imagine a world without honeybees. And it's a little bit of a dark ending, but we're trying to bring this serious topic to the public. Again, we're sharing the stage. You can see from this picture that the musicians are moving. There is honeybee lamps, and there's a honeybee cove, hive. Ellie's got one behind her head.
I was gonna say, I have a hive right here. One of the most, the coolest piece of set designs from the musician's point of view for this piece was the music stands. Obviously we can memorize a lot of music, but not everything. The more, musically complex some pieces are, it's just impossible. So we had these actually hand built specifically for us by Keith. And you can see they're kind of these little honeycomb stands that you can fit your iPad onto and your pedal for changing the page, and they were on rollers. They could be moved around the stage as different set pieces, which gave us a lot more freedom. And
this program, we're actually presenting it, you may see it on the little poster here, May 29th through June 13th. We'd love to promote this with you guys and have you tell your friends if you're desperate for a little art. We're presenting this at cincyfringe.com. You can go there and you can buy a ticket, and anytime between May 29th and June 13th, at your leisure, anytime within that span, you can, for $10, rent the ability to watch our show. And it's about a 60-minute show. And we're pretty proud of it. You get to see Ellie do some pirouettes in addition to playing the saxophone, which is, I think, really interesting. And something I didn't really dwell on, but we definitely do in this program and did in Murder Mystery, and we did it in Memory Web, and we did it in Haunted, is that we actually compose our own interludes often between pieces. So particularly with these dance concerts, you may not know exactly when a piece begins or ends, because we may riff on some of the music from one section or combine another piece to connect with another. For this particular concert, we took two of the works, and used elements from those works to create interludes, so that there's also this unified sense of the concert that it all belongs together, because certain musical ideas keep coming back and forth. So I'll play you our Instagram promo for this. It's only 1 minute long, and then if anybody has questions, if you're still here and want to ask us anything, we'd be happy to chat with you some more. Here's our little promo for this concert. They're lifting the flute player. Pretty amazing while she's playing. Well, thanks so much for listening to Elle and I talk about what we're up to. I hope it may give you some ideas for some programming of your own. And if anybody has any questions, we'd be happy to talk to you. Or play the movie again.
Okay. Okay. Well, oh, here's a question. There's a, could you, Rob, could you stop sharing the screen so we could just take a look at the chat box? Is that okay?
Yeah. Did I do it?
Yeah, you got it. So, question from Nathan: how do you land on a lighting design ideas? How do you choose how to create your lighting design?
Yeah, that's a good question. When I first did this 20 years ago, I walked into the Moores Opera House and I wanted to do some lighting. And I said to the Opera House director, who's a lighting designer, can we do lights here? I didn't know he's a lighting designer. He said, can we do lights here? So he kind of taught me the basics. Essentially, I know what is possible, which is what Ellie talked about, which is spotlights, colors, possibility of gobos. And so I start there. And then for each piece, I try to figure out what is best going to communicate that piece. So if you've got a piece maybe that has several different, radically different moods, it might be nice to actually really highlight those with a lighting change. And keeping things basic. I can't encourage that more. When I first did it, I would have like 20 cues per piece. It was too many. I tend to think somewhere between 2 and 10 is the ideal amount. Sometimes there'll be, what we were trying to show in that thing is they could be really exact or they could be gradual. You could have lights gradually change over any span of time. But I try to think about what will highlight what's going on in that particular piece of music. Sometimes if it's like a really intense work that's maybe very introspective, maybe just a spotlight with no colors, no gobos or anything is exactly what it needs to really give you that sense of intimacy, even though it's a relatively big stage. And so I kind of go through each piece and think about where will the lighting heighten what's happening in the music and maybe show something that someone might not pick up on a first listen. You know, we all know that when you listen to a piece of music, you don't get everything the first time. But can I maybe point something out through the lighting? Like, oh, you know, that's where the harmonies start really getting more colorful. I don't know if it's that noticeable, but I could show that with the lighting and kind of clue that in so that maybe that'll get the listener to do that. Something else that I've done sometimes, and I was trying to think of an example and I couldn't when I was putting this together, which is sometimes it's neat to have the lighting do something that's not what's going on in the music so that the lighting is doing something contrary. And I know I've done it. I can't think right now of an example, but if you think of the lighting as being a counterpoint to what's going on, that can be really interesting, where the lighting is doing something that's actually opposite of what's going on with the music. And that can be kind of powerful. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. Okay, we have a question from Nick. What kind of timeline do you operate on? How far ahead are you with workshopping creative ideas? When do you have the production solidified? And how do you coordinate that with your rehearsal schedule?
Yeah, I sit down every spring and come up with the season. And for the more advanced concerts,
and we do 4 concerts a season.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. We do 4 concerts, and for the more advanced concerts, I mean, for all of them actually, I have them basically laid out in August, by August, so that I know exactly what I'm doing. Especially if it's one with dance or something like that, we usually have to have gotten financing and need a grant for that. So the grant will usually be gotten somewhere around the realm of a year and a half to somewhere around 1 to 2 years in advance. I would say 1 is the shortest possible. We have done that before, where we found out we got the grant in July and then we frantically kind of got everything together and had the first showing of it in April, which is, I guess, much less than a year, what, 8 months? But do that. But a lot of planning is needed. For a normal concert, it's actually not that hard to get everything kind of lined up in a few months, and lighting cues can be done a month before.
Cool. We have a question. Do you find performers are usually on board with the idea of putting on a show, or is there some convincing that you have to do?
Mostly everybody is on board. Hi, Tomas. I so owe you an email. I know that. I was so glad to get yours, and I'm going to write you. But yeah, you know, performers are actually usually on board. I don't know if that's because the people who are playing in my ensemble tend to be the people who are interested in doing something different because it's contemporary music. Although I will say that the people who play in our group are the very best people at our school. And we consistently, it's by audition, but the people who want to be in it are some of the best people. But they're also maybe the most adventurous. I don't know. They're usually into it. I have to admit, sometimes they're not particularly excited about it. The dance concerts, a couple people I remember saying, I'm going to have to do what? I don't want them to touch me. I don't want to be lifted. I don't know that that's going to work out. And then our choreographer, Sophia, she is so great. She's so gentle and so calming. And she says, hey, I just want to try this. If you don't want to do it, we won't do it. And then when they start doing it, the musicians realize that this is actually kind of interesting. It's something that's unusual and expands what they can do. And I think we've all found that, you know, any trepidation we might have for speaking or doing something that's out of our comfort zone, once we do it, it actually expands our abilities to communicate and expands our feeling of performing. Like when we do it with the visual artists, or the literature, they come in and read their stuff and it's like, wow, I hadn't thought about the music means that. And then it changes how we're performing. But I'm getting off the topic of being comfortable or not. I would say in general, people are into it, but there's some discomfort. Like Ellie,
well, I would just add
it, but
I would add in here. I mean, I think for me, as a performer, when I get these new ideas, I think the amount of preparation time and the amount of like pre-notice that these things are going to happen, the better I feel about it. So, you know, whenever we're doing costumes or anything like that, we try on costumes, you know, weeks in advance. So we really make sure they fit, that you feel comfortable in them. If you need some extra accessories, you can do that. When I did the rowing with the saxophone in the boat and the speaking, you know, it wasn't like, oh, I'm just about to walk out on stage, oh, maybe I should row, like that would be fun. You know, like we really workshopped the acting, really workshopped the movement, and all of those things. And then when you know, those dance sequences, with the dance collaborations that we've done, you know, we're learning the moves months in advance. It's not kind of like a quick throw it on at the end, this will be fun kind of thing. It's something that we really, you know, rehearse as much as we rehearse the music in many cases.
But to be direct about your question, I came into Ellie's office with a Popeye outfit.
Yes.
And Ellie was like, no. her initial reaction was like, I don't think I'm going to go on stage in a Popeye outfit. And I think I had the benefit, I believe Jeremy or somebody was in the office saying, oh, that would be great. So she kind of got stuck. And I can think of a few other times when I've told people what I had in mind, and they said, oh, I just don't know about that. But they usually come around.
Yeah. It's now, I think, in Houston, I think it's my most famous role. So, no, I'm very proud of it.
She's very famous for being, and you couldn't tell in that video exactly as well as you could in Hall, but she had the puffed up forearms. The costume came
with like stuff with toilet paper to make them look kind of beefy. Yeah.
That was very funny.
Okay, well, if there are no more questions, if anything comes up at another time, feel free to reach out to us. We're always here to answer anything. And thank you so much, Dr. Nab, for hosting us today.
Yeah, thanks. And buy a ticket to our show.
Oh, yeah, and come and see it.
Yeah, watch Ellie do some dancing. I mean, she really does some dancing, and she's actually fantastic. I mean, really, really good. So some good saxophone playing, too.
I would... there's a real memorable piece. I have my Barry strapped to my front and I have to do these big old lunges across the whole stage. I'm not a especially physical person, so it's pretty extravagant, but buy a ticket, see it in its full glory. And if you have any questions after you've seen it, I think there are going to even be opportunities to speak with dancers and musicians during that festival. So
well, thanks for listening to us. We appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Okay, awesome.